Let's talk about it with Pilar Prinz, a criminal defense attorney. Joey Jackson is a former prosecutor. Pilar, what about it? Is that fair?
Well, John, it's a moral debate that's gone on in our country for years, but legally the answer is plain and simple. The government has a legal obligation to provide medical care to inmates. And this goes back to a 1975 case when the Supreme Court of the United States determined that for the government to deny medical care to a prisoner who needs it is cruel and unusual punishment under our Constitution. So understandably, as a taxpayer and as a law-abiding citizen, it's very upsetting to people that they're seeing this. And I think what we're seeing is because the dollar is so high, but prisoners get medical care every single day. We're hearing about this because it's such a huge number.
Sure, yeah, they get, they get their cavities filled and that kind of thing, Joey, but a liver transplant for $1 million?
That's a pretty big cavity, John, wouldn't you say? Listen, Pilar states the standard correctly in that we do indeed have to provide medical care. However, it's the degree of medical care here that's at issue. And I would suggest to you that the case that she's talking about, the Supreme Court did not say that liver transplants should be afforded aplenty to every inmate. What the Supreme Court did say, however, was that you cannot have deliberate indifference towards the medical treatment of an inmate. And that simply means you cannot recklessly disregard their care. I would suggest to you, John, that there's a huge distinction between being deliberately indifferent and being unreasonably accommodating. I don't think there's any way or any measure that legally taxpayers should be footing a bill for a prisoner to the tune of $1 million, or at least in this sense, you're talking about a subsidy that the national government is giving, and the state, of course, is picking up 40% of the rest. I think it offends all notions of fairness and decency, quite frankly, that the taxpayer should have to do.
The most common cause of liver disease, and hence the need for a liver transplant, is alcoholism, but drug use is right up there too. We know, Pilar, that this guy had a history in the drug trade. We don't know what caused his liver failure, and the state won't say because he's a prisoner and his medical records are private. But what if he's responsible, for self-inflicted liver disease here?
John, look, you're right. We don't know. They're not going to say, but the reality is there are many other people who I'm sure are on the transplant list that you could say the same exact thing. And here's the way the argument goes. Prisoners are already being punished for their crime by being incarcerated. And what our court decided many, many years ago is that they're not going to be punished again. Once they're in prison, although we take away their right to liberty, we don't take away their rights to food, to shelter, to safety, and to medical care. And within that, of course, it's a gray. The highs and lows about whether what type of care they get, that's left up to our society, and that's left to the doctors. But in this case, the doctors at the hospital were the ones who made the determination that this man needed the care, and so what the prison had to do was abide by the hospital's decision.
Joey, let's just say I'm unemployed and I find out I need a new liver. What's to prevent me from knocking over the local liquor store so that I can get arrested and go to prison and get a new liver and have the state pay for it?
It's a great point, John, because it leads to those parade of horribles. I mean, what would prevent a person from engaging in criminal activity knowing you're going to get the best health care imaginable? There's a distinction between providing the bare necessities. When you provide food, it doesn't have to be steak, it doesn't have to be lobster. When you provide medical treatment, it doesn't have to be a transplant. There are many people who are deserving of it.
Joey, but you're forgetting one thing. What goes on here, once these people are put on this organ transplant list, and the first step is determining if they're eligible. Once it's determined they're eligible, my understanding is it's simply random. And so a prisoner is put in the same list and has the same rights. They're not getting preferential treatment.
They are
feels
indeed.
That way, but they're not.
It's deliberate indifference. Providing a liver transplant, that seems to me to be way beyond the standard the court has set of being deliberately indifferent.
But the doctor in this case, it would be deliberate indifference if the doctor determined that he needed it.
Well, boot to the doctor,
I understand why people are upset about it, but the doctor made the decision.
Well, the folks in Rhode Island are paying for it, at least 40% of it.